He knew the feeling. That gut-wrenching certainty that everything, absolutely everything, was about to unravel. It wasn't a premonition, it was a lived experience, a familiar visitor that arrived unannounced, bringing chaos in its wake. Not some grand, operatic tragedy, mind you. Nothing that would make headlines or inspire a movie script. No, this was the quiet, insidious unraveling of the everyday. The kind that grinds you down, grain by grain, until you're left staring at the wreckage of what you thought was solid ground. He'd felt it in the boardroom, the subtle shift in tone, the barely perceptible glances exchanged between colleagues. The project, his project, the one he'd poured his heart and soul into for the past 18 months, was teetering on the brink. He could taste the failure, acrid and bitter, coating the back of his throat. It wasn't just about the work. It was about the validation, the recognition, the illusion of control he desperately clung to in a world that felt increasingly unpredictable. He felt it again later that evening, the tremor in his voice as he spoke to his father. The news wasn't good. The diagnosis, the prognosis, the stark reality of mortality looming over their already strained relationship. Words, once a bridge, now felt like heavy stones, impossible to lift, impossible to place. He wanted to offer comfort, to offer hope, but the wellspring felt dry, the words hollow and meaningless. And then there was Sarah. Or rather, the absence of Sarah. The unread messages, the unanswered calls, the growing chasm of silence that stretched between them. He knew, deep down, that it was over. The slow, agonizing death of a relationship that had once felt so vibrant, so full of promise. He'd tried, hadn't he? He'd compromised, he'd apologized, he'd contorted himself into shapes he barely recognized, all in a desperate attempt to hold on to something that was already slipping through his fingers. The weight was crushing. The pressure, relentless. He felt like a diver, trapped beneath the surface, lungs burning, vision blurring, desperately searching for a way back to the light. Every breath felt like a struggle, every movement an effort. The world, once a source of endless possibilities, now felt like a cage, a suffocating prison of his own making. He saw others, seemingly unfazed, navigating the same turbulent waters with effortless grace. They smiled, they laughed, they seemed to possess some secret, some hidden strength that eluded him. He envied them, resented them, even hated them, for their apparent ease, their unwavering optimism. What did they know that he didn't? How did they manage to keep their heads above water when he was drowning in despair? He scrolled through social media, a masochistic exercise in self-torture. Images of perfect families, perfect vacations, perfect lives flashed across the screen, each one a tiny dagger twisting in his already wounded soul. He knew it was all a carefully curated facade, a highlight reel of manufactured happiness, but still, it stung. He felt inadequate, flawed, a failure in every aspect of his life. Sleep offered no escape. Nightmares plagued his dreams, vivid replays of his failures, his shortcomings, his deepest fears. He woke up exhausted, drained, the weight of the world pressing down on him with renewed force. The cycle continued, day after day, week after week, a relentless descent into darkness. He knew he needed to change something. He needed to find a way out of this abyss. But where to start? How to begin? The task seemed insurmountable, the path forward obscured by a thick fog of despair. He felt lost, adrift, a solitary ship tossed about on a stormy sea, with no land in sight. This wasn't about seeking happiness, some fleeting, ephemeral emotion. This was about survival. About finding a way to endure, to persevere, to reclaim some semblance of control in a world that felt utterly chaotic. It was about discovering the strength within, the resilience he didn't know he possessed, the ability to weather the storm and emerge, not unscathed, but unbroken. The question wasn't if he could find it, but how. The answer, he suspected, lay not in changing the world around him, but in changing himself. He stumbled upon an old book, tucked away in a dusty corner of his grandfather's attic. Not a self-help manual, not a spiritual guide, but a collection of essays by Seneca. The words, though centuries old, resonated with an uncanny familiarity, a stark reflection of his own internal turmoil. Seneca spoke of adversity as an opportunity, a crucible in which character is forged, a test of one's virtue. It wasn't about avoiding hardship, but about confronting it with courage and equanimity. The concept of amor fati, the love of fate, struck him with particular force. Not a passive acceptance of whatever life throws your way, but an active embrace of it, a recognition that everything, even the most painful experiences, serves a purpose, contributes to the tapestry of your life. The failed project, the strained relationship with his father, the end of his romance, these weren't random acts of cruelty, but integral parts of his journey, lessons to be learned, opportunities for growth. Consider, now, how this plays out when facing daily annoyances. Your train is delayed, making you late for an important meeting. Your carefully crafted presentation is riddled with typos. Your neighbor starts mowing the lawn at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. The instinctive reaction is frustration, anger, resentment. But what if instead, you choose to see these inconveniences as opportunities to practice patience, to exercise self-control, to cultivate inner peace? What if you embrace the chaos, accept the imperfections, and find a way to navigate the situation with grace and composure? To further explore this notion, imagine a sculptor working with a flawed piece of marble. The stone is cracked, uneven, full of imperfections. A lesser artist might discard it, deeming it unusable. But a true master sees the potential within the flaws, the opportunity to create something unique, something beautiful, something that wouldn't have been possible with a perfect piece of stone. He works with the imperfections, not against them, transforming what was once a liability into an asset. Consequently, he started viewing his own flaws, his own imperfections, in a similar light. His tendency to overthink, his fear of failure, his need for validation. These weren't weaknesses to be suppressed, but aspects of himself to be understood, to be embraced, to be transformed. He began to practice mindfulness, observing his thoughts and emotions without judgment, allowing them to pass through him like clouds in the sky. He started to challenge his negative self-talk, replacing it with affirmations of his own strength and resilience. Another crucial layer is the understanding that external events have no inherent power to harm you. It is your reaction to those events that determines their impact. Someone insults you, criticizes you, belittles you. You have a choice. You can choose to internalize their words, to let them define you, to allow them to chip away at your self-worth. Or you can choose to dismiss them, to recognize them as projections of their own insecurities, to maintain your inner equilibrium. Moving on, think of a boxer in the ring. He knows he's going to get hit. He knows he's going to experience pain. But he doesn't dwell on the pain. He doesn't allow it to distract him from his goal. He focuses on his strategy, on his footwork, on his timing. He absorbs the blows, he adapts to the situation, he keeps moving forward. He understands that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Building on this, however, he understood that he couldn't control what happened to him, but he could control how he responded. He couldn't prevent the storms from coming, but he could learn to navigate them with skill and courage. He could build a shelter within himself, a fortress of inner peace that no external force could penetrate. The key, he realized, was not to fight against reality, but to accept it, to embrace it, to learn from it. This shift in perspective, this embrace of amor fati, was the first step on his journey back to the light. Reflecting on this journey so far, one begins to perceive a subtle but profound shift in perspective. It's not merely about acquiring a set of coping mechanisms or adopting a philosophical stance. Rather, it's akin to recalibrating one's internal compass, learning to navigate not by avoiding the storms, but by understanding the currents and harnessing the winds. The true destination isn't a tranquil harbor, devoid of challenges, but the inner capacity to remain steadfast, even when the waves crash against the bow. The convergence of these insights reveals something more profound than simple resilience. It speaks to the potential for transforming adversity into a catalyst for self-discovery. Imagine a river, constantly encountering obstacles in its path. Rocks, fallen trees, changes in elevation. It doesn't simply cease to flow. Instead, it adapts, finds new channels, carves deeper grooves, and ultimately, emerges stronger and more defined. Similarly, the challenges we face are not roadblocks on the path to happiness, but opportunities to shape our character, refine our purpose, and deepen our understanding of ourselves. Drawing these strands together, we see that the pursuit of external control is, in essence, a distraction. It's like chasing a mirage in the desert, expending energy on an illusion while neglecting the true source of sustenance within. The real power lies not in manipulating the external world to conform to our desires, but in cultivating the inner fortitude to weather whatever storms may come. This isn't about resignation or apathy. It's about recognizing where our true agency resides, in our thoughts, our emotions, and our choices. In light of these insights, the path forward becomes clearer, though not necessarily easier. It requires a constant practice of self-awareness, a willingness to confront our own vulnerabilities, and a commitment to cultivating inner peace, even amidst chaos. It's a journey of continuous refinement, a process of stripping away the layers of conditioning and societal expectations to reveal the authentic self beneath. It's about embracing the imperfections, the contradictions, the complexities of the human experience, and finding strength in our own unique narrative. As we pivot towards the final reflection, consider the cumulative effect of these ideas. It's not about achieving some unattainable state of enlightenment or becoming immune to suffering. It's about cultivating a sense of inner stability, a groundedness that allows us to navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life with grace and equanimity. It's about transforming the reactive, fear-driven self into a proactive, purpose-driven individual, capable of finding meaning and fulfillment, regardless of the circumstances. The final destination isn't a place of effortless ease, but a state of empowered acceptance, a recognition that true strength lies not in avoiding the challenges, but in embracing them as opportunities for growth and self-discovery. And so, he stood on the precipice, not of a new world, but of a new understanding. The storms hadn't vanished, the challenges remained. His father's health still weighed heavily, the project remained uncertain, and the silence from Sarah was still deafening. But something fundamental had shifted within him. The fear, the anxiety, the desperation for control had begun to recede, replaced by a quiet sense of acceptance, a deep-seated resilience that he hadn't known he possessed. He recognized that the search for strength wasn't about erecting impenetrable walls around himself, shielding himself from the inevitable blows of life. It was about cultivating a flexible, adaptable core, capable of bending without breaking, of absorbing the impact and rebounding with renewed vigor. It was about understanding that vulnerability wasn't a weakness to be avoided, but a source of profound strength, a connection to the shared human experience. He saw now that the world wasn't a hostile force to be conquered, but a complex, ever-changing tapestry of opportunities and challenges, joys and sorrows, triumphs and failures. It was a dance, a constant interplay of opposing forces, and his role wasn't to control the music, but to learn to move with the rhythm, to embrace the imperfections, to find beauty in the chaos. The real battle, he realized, wasn't against the external world, but against the internal saboteur, the voice of doubt and fear that whispered insidious lies in the darkness. It was about silencing that voice, not through brute force, but through gentle understanding, through self-compassion, through the unwavering commitment to his own inner peace. It was about recognizing that he was enough, just as he was, flaws and all. He began to see his past failures, not as marks of shame, but as invaluable lessons, as stepping stones on the path to self-discovery. He understood that every mistake, every setback, every heartbreak had contributed to his growth, had shaped him into the person he was today. He embraced his history, not with regret, but with gratitude, recognizing that it was an integral part of his story. And now, stepping forward, he carried not a shield, but an open heart. He faced the future not with trepidation, but with anticipation, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, he possessed the inner resources to navigate them with grace and courage. The true strength, he understood, wasn't about avoiding the storms, but about learning to dance in the rain. The true practice begins now, in the quiet moments of everyday life, in the face of adversity, in the embrace of the unknown.